welcome to Podcast Beyond, episode 463. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to go Beyond. All right, there we go. That's that. I guess we did it backwards once again.
The order, that was strange.
Yeah, the order, 1886. Hi, everybody. I'm Max Scova. With me, Marty Sleva.
Hi, Max.
Andrew Goldfarb.
Hey, Max.
And Lucy O'Brien.
Hey, Max.
From a faraway place. Who are you?
Faraway land.
That's actually our first bullet point. Lucy's here.
So yeah,
bullet point
there is
Who is that?
There is a bullet point that says, who is that? Hi, I'm from the Sydney office. You guys may know me from the Sydney office. And I'm here today from the Sydney office to do Beyond with you.
Do you get paid every time you say Sydney office?
Who is this Sydney office
Who's
person?
Sydney office?
So you're here from Cindy, who's a good friend of the show.
Sydney, good old Sydney.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you in town. It's
awesome. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's one of those rare things, like, we tend to only get to see the Australian and the UK team at, like, E3.
Yeah.
Or at
Or
Coco,
really,
which
like-
is the one time a year where everyone gets in San Francisco.
Or like one of you will be at Gamescom for a minute.
For a minute.
Yeah.
Like a red hot minute.
Yeah.
Where, like every single time we're at Gamescom, it's like the best minute.
It's like, oh, hey, Trista. Oh, all right. Well, it's good to see you. You're here for a little while.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here. I was here on vacation just to see you lovely people, but I'm actually going to stick around a little bit longer to check out some Watch Dogs 2 stuff that's happening in your city. So yeah, I'm here for another week.
Have you got to play that at all yet?
Have I got to play Watch Dogs 2? Yeah,
yeah.
I played 2 hours before, like the day before I left, and I really
nice.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed it, and I'm just gonna put it out there that I played not very much of the first game because
First
I was
game
like,
it was a little bit of a wet blanket.
well, I was just like, it was one of those sort of things where I was just like, oh, okay, it's an open world, but like, if it's an open world, I really need to be very invested.
Yeah.
Like, I can't just be semi-invested. And so, seeing as I was only semi-invested, I didn't keep playing.
Have you spent much time in San Francisco?
This is my 3rd time in San Francisco, but it's like, this is the first time I've been in San Francisco where I've had some vacation time.
That's cool.
Have
So
you
it's like
hacked
also-
any phones or traffic lights yet?
That's all I've done. Like with my beanie
Yeah,
and
exactly.
my ripped
Yep.
jeans
Yeah.
and my flannel.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that
like,
is literally
those
how you
three things
dress.
are real, yeah.
Yeah, like I just I crouch down a lot in
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
alleyways.
Yeah, you have that weird, that's that posture. You do that weird crouch.
Yeah, you know.
You're like Quasimodo.
Hacker slouch. It's like I'm working from home for my startup. Also, I'm sitting on the ground. It's like, got my little robot friend out
Also,
here.
crouching sucks. Like, that's like the worst
Like in real life?
position. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
does,
like
it
crouching.
hurts the lower back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
just
like no one
just
looks
sit.
good crouching.
No,
it's not like,
no one
oh,
looks
that's
good.
you at your
Yeah.
best.
No one has a
Yeah.
sexy crouch.
People
Yeah.
always say like The Last of Us is a great game, but I don't think it looks great to be that man in that game because he's just messing up his lumbar.
He's
It's
always
very-
bent. He's always bent over. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that would hurt.
Also, just I don't know. There's something funny about like a game where you have the option to play it stealthily, but when other NPCs aren't really kind of going with that, so you just look like you're. It's like when you do excessive like tactical roles and like we need to sneak around, and then it's like.
Well, it's also like I was watching you play Mafia this weekend, and for some reason it wasn't letting you hug to cover.
Yeah.
So you were just this weird guy like chicken dance walking around, trying to hug
I was like,
to a
nope.
wall.
Oh, at this point, we're not doing cover anymore. No, we've gotten rid of that feature in the game.
Yep.
But really, like if you actually think about it, I remember when I was reviewing The Evil Within, and in that game, basically, I think I was crouching pretty much like 90% of the time. Or it might have even been Batman. Like, it was some game recently. I was just like, God, if I actually could, like, look at myself, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's this weird kind of, like, strange, like, chicken walk thing.
I like the idea that the monsters in the Evil Within are like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
Gross.
I don't like it.
Why is it walking like that?
Anyway, man,
you were
I'm
at
sorry.
Comic-Con.
I'm like, as we speak, I'm sort of, instead of having the usual Beyond logo up on the screen behind us, I have a PlayStation plugged in because I need to download friggin' Tomb Raider.
If you go to the store, it should say previously purchased.
What store? Go to the store,
Download
get
the
it.
Destiny Public Alpha.
No,
That
here,
sounds
go
like
back.
a good time.
Go back.
Okay, so we're gonna do a podcast where you walk me through how to
Okay,
download
go to the
the game.
PlayStation store.
I'm not even on my. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not even on my account. This is
Yeah.
on Brian's. So yeah.
So
Sorry
go
for
to that.
everybody listening at home.
And
This
if
is terrible.
did he buy it? He bought it.
I don't know.
If he
he's like,
redeemed
just
it or bought
download
it.
it, and I'm
Here,
like,
give it-
the last time I tried to download something here, somebody downloaded
Okay, this is
Modern
what we're
Warfare.
gonna do. This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Give the controller to Andrew.
Yeah.
He'll try to
Thank you.
download it. You went to Comic-Con.
I went to New York Comic
Tell us
Con
about
this
New
last
York.
weekend. That's why I'm sort of frantic, like because I don't. It's just it's been busy. We've got the IGN house party coming up this weekend, and then there's Comic Con this last weekend. So it's just and we're downloading a game while recording a podcast.
Yeah.
So a lot of busy stuff going on.
You're going to the Tonys.
What?
You're going to the Tonys
Yeah,
next week.
for my performance in the Hamiltons.
Yeah.
That's the sequel to Hamilton when there's more than one Hamilton.
You played Alan Baskett, inventor
Yeah.
of the wicker basket.
I don't think he owns this game.
Okay, so Brian doesn't
We
own
could
Tomb
buy
Raider.
it.
Anyway, New York Comic Con was awesome.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't ever been to that one before. It's a lot smaller than San Diego, and it's also in a city that I think people go to for reasons other than Comic Con.
Right.
Yeah.
Like New York is an attraction in and of itself.
Yeah, whereas like San Diego during Comic-Con, that city transforms for
yeah,
Comic-Con.
that's like Comic Con, the pop-up shop.
Whereas,
city.
yeah, for New York Comic-Con, it's just like a little thing in the corner of New York, and the rest of the city goes on.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it was
does that make it more like, because I've actually never been to San Diego Comic Con and I just hear it's chaos and
Yeah.
quite exhausting. So having a smaller, I mean,
it's smaller, but it's still incredibly busy and crowded.
Right.
But you
What's
can
cool-
definitely escape.
Yeah, what's cool about it is that like when my day's done and I'm like I don't need to do Comic-Con coverage anymore. I can like go to a museum or I can
Yeah.
go to see things that aren't strictly tied to what I cover.
Or you
for
can go to
work.
an amazing pizza place in
Exactly.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
even you did exactly what Brian and I did last year, which was we went up to Rockstar or went down to Rockstar, which is nice, going downtown and getting away from the Comic Con crowd.
Yeah, that was rad. Went and hung out with the Rockstar guys, and we just did like a live stream. It was really fun, actually. There was they just launched the Bikers like DLC for GTA Online, and the thing is, there have been people who've been playing like they've been role playing as biker gangs. So there's these motorcycle clubs in the game that have been existing on their own terms without that being like part of the content. Like there's no way of being like, oh, I'm starting a motorcycle club. They're just sort of like, yeah, we start a motorcycle club because we can.
That's so cool.
And they
That's
like
awesome,
they're like
yeah.
super dedicated to it. They're like okay, we don't use any aim assist. The following guns are not allowed. They're like we only use like explosives or like sticky mines for re-engineering the landscape or something. And I'm like, you mean to blow up a fence if it's in the way? Like they were like about to, and they're like they ride in formation, like they practice. So it's like just taking that game to like so far to the next level, and they do like charity events.
Well,
they
and
like, hang out in real
that's
life.
one of those things, like the word sandbox gets thrown around a lot, but it's sort of misused. Like we'll talk about Mafia later. Like that's not a sandbox game. Like you can't call that a sandbox game. Whereas with this, it's like I don't think anyone ever intended for this to happen when they made that game, but people took what the Housers and what Rockstar put in there, and we're like, well, what if I just start shaping this differently, and what if we move this here and I create my own game?
And then
Yeah.
that influenced DLC that's actually out, which is even cooler.
Yeah.
Yep. But it was really cool hanging out with those guys, and we were on the stream with like the leaders of a couple motorcycle gangs who called a ceasefire for the first week of this DLC being out, so that everyone could kind of just get a feel for it and enjoy it without worrying about like, getting messed up.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was really, really
Is there going to be like
charming.
an in-game like Altamont event where like they end up going to a Stones concert and stabbing someone?
God, that's really dark.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That
man.
happened.
I know that happened, but I mean, probably. Apparently, the big issue.
I
is
didn't. I
they'll
wasn't
be,
the one who instigated
like,
that.
One thing they'll be like practicing, like they'll be, in like kind of the public area, just driving around, and they'll be like practicing their, their formation, and they'll be like riding down the road together and be like, all right, we're gonna practice riding single file or whatever. They're like, all right, let's do 2-3-2-2, like let's get in order this way. And then like some random idiot will show up in a jet and just be like, oh, there's like 8 dots going down the map altogether. I wonder what happens if I shoot that with missiles. And then it's like, oh, you've incurred the wrath of a motorcycle gang that doesn't use aim assist. Like you've got a bunch of bikers after you. Like, I mean, it's just kind of it's so funny. Like. Yeah.
I remember hearing stories like that, like about stuff like DayZ and Rust, about how like the way people would just play those games is like, oh no, we've started this society, and you'll encounter a random player and be like, hey, you have to put this bag over your head and you have to give us all your items.
Yeah, there's still a
Yeah.
feature on IGN that Mitch wrote about Rust and about like that, like
Mitch?
emergent gameplay.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Mitch.
I don't know
away.
who Mitch is. I don't know. He's forgotten. Anyway, Mafia 3 came out. Speaking
Yes.
of Take-Two Interactive
Why is there a Space Jam
crime
picture?
properties. What?
There's a Space Jam picture
Okay,
in this
you can't just refer to something that no one else can see. For those of you listening or watching at home, we've got these notes that we write that
No,
are sometimes
it
very
all makes
stupid.
sense. So we wrote Mafia 3, and then Max wrote Marty hated it, and then I wrote 7.5 is not hate you Monstar, and then you put a picture of the Monstar.
Of the Monstars.
Oh, the
Okay.
Monstars.
And then,
yeah.
Okay,
Below
yeah,
that
I
it
was
says,
wondering.
welcome to the Space Jam. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So you said in your review that there weren't enough Silly Boats missions and that the graphics were bad.
didn't say either.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't read your review, but I made up some of my own notes about it.
I mean, there could have been more Silly Boat missions.
Yeah, the graphics are actually pretty good.
There's going to be a Silly Boat expansion pack.
Yeah, so I gave the game a 7.5. I played through it primarily on Xbox One, and I dabbled in the PS4 and PC versions. I adore the story. I think it's legitimately one of the best stories in a AAA game of this generation.
Really?
Yeah,
That's okay.
The characters, the writing, the performances of Lincoln and your three lieutenants and sort of the priest. And I love the framing device of it goes forward a couple of years after the events of the games when your CIA contact is under deposition and he's sort of retelling the events of the games. But then it goes forward 30 years to when the priest is an old man and he's reflecting upon this time in his life when he's like, I befriended a mass murderer and this is something I've been weighing on my conscience for my entire adult life, and I don't know what to do about it. Yeah, and so all of this stuff is just like, how is this in a AAA game? It's like how Spec Ops, like when Spec Ops came out, you're like, you have no business telling this story.
That makes sense because Walt Williams worked on that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and Well, I also worked a little bit on Mafia 3 too. I think that was his last game. But so. Story is incredible front to back. There's variations of the ending depending on what you do, which I loved.
Yeah.
That being said, the moment to moment gameplay is just sort of bland across the board. Bland.
So elaborate.
It is.
I'm sorry, I haven't read your review.
No, that's
I've
fine.
been on holiday there.
That's
so
fine.
I've got an excuse. These
Vacation
guys
Lucy
don't
doesn't
have.
read
These guys don't have.
It is. It follows the exact mold that GTA 3 started, where it's drive from point A to point B, grab your mission,
Right.
finish your mission. But the thing is, it doesn't do anything poorly, but it doesn't really do anything well. The cover system is adequate when it works, but far too often, we were joking about it earlier, it just wouldn't work. And so Andrew saw me in the middle of a gunfight, me trying to just be like, I'm going to get behind this wall. And it's like, well, no, the system decided to stop working. The guns are, again, adequate. I found myself just using the base pistol from the beginning of the game throughout the entire game.
Really?
I never needed anything else. There's stealth kills, which just shows how dumb the enemy AI is. You whistle when you're in cover, and they'll walk over, and then you stab them, and a guy will be like, what happened over there? And you whistle, and then he comes over.
That was
Is there any
Marty's-
crouching?
There's so much crouching.
Is there like a lot of duck walking?
Oh,
and-
there is so much
Right.
crouching.
His whole game was that there's a mechanic where when you whistle, guys come to you one at a time. So he would just sit in a doorway, crouch, and whistle, and stab a guy, and then whistle and stab the next guy. And there's like this slowly piling up bodies.
And the 90% of the missions fall into the same couple buckets of go into this building and kill a guy, or destroy the cargo of this specific district, whether it's drugs or whiskey or porn. And then
Who would ever do that? This is terrible.
cargoes of porn.
Yeah, would you,
Who
well,
just
be
a
like,
big
"Oh,
pallet of porn?
Looks like there's a bunch of fun coming into the city. We got to get rid of it. It's got a bunch of fun Milton Bradley games. There's some Super Balls, porn, whiskey. Gonna nuke all that stuff, and everyone's gonna have a real bad time.
And those get the thing is, you go through that cycle for every district in the game, so you literally go through the cycle of doing multiple missions like that 9 times.
So it just gets repetitive.
Yeah, but that said, each district culminates in the story's sort of a Kill Bill revenge tale at its base core. So you're slowly working your way up the Mafia hierarchy. But each mission or each district culminates in a really cool set piece mission. And like we showed at E3, we had the big one on the riverboat that's sinking. There's one in this flooded, abandoned, quasi-racist amusement park. I mean, just straight up racist amusement park. That's like, it's a small world, but just with Song of the South.
Yeah, and there was literally a clan rally.
Yeah, there's a clan rally
Like-
that you go and just burn a dude alive.
I hear they handle it quite well.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's the thing. The other thing is, I'm like, oh, this is, when someone is dealing with a half-black protagonist coming back from Vietnam in 1968 Louisiana, you're like, there's no way a video game can handle this tactfully, but it does.
Yeah.
And it handles it even in the mechanics where there's certain neighborhoods where if you rob a car in an affluent neighborhood, the cops are called and they will come right away in full force. If you rob it in the Hollows, which is like the starting off the black neighborhood, they might not even call the cops, or the cops just won't come. And so it's like, and there's certain buildings you enter where they're like, hey, we don't serve you. Like,
Good
get
God.
out. If you stay in, like, the cops will be called.
I mean, the crazy thing about this game, and I've said this to you a couple times, is because Marty played a bunch of this in my apartment, and I just watched basically. I find it fascinating that like the landscape of the industry is that this probably had to be an open world game, whereas I don't think mechanically it needed to be. Like it seems like the story and performances are so good that maybe it would have benefited from just being linear or even being like quasi open world, like a BioShock or something like that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. The open world things are in my opinion, the weakest elements of the game. I really like there's a lieutenant system where early on you get 3 sort of lieutenants who work under you, one of which is Vito, who is the main character of Mafia 2. And so you have these 3. You have an Irish dude, an Italian dude, and a Haitian woman.
Do they ever walk into a bar together?
Yes, they do, actually. I think you have your meeting in a bar.
There's a priest there, too.
There is a priest. But every time you take over a district, you have to choose which one of them you assign it to. And I kept doing Vito because you get perks based on which character it is. So the Haitian woman's, you will continually upgrade your arsenal, whereas Vito was health-based stuff. And eventually, Cassandra, the Haitian, was like, hey, if you don't give me this next one, we're going to have a problem. And I was like, well, I liked her as a character, but I'm like, mechanically, I'm siding with Vito because like your perks are way more in line with the way I play. And I gave one too many things away, and Cassandra was like, all right, this is done. She leaves the meeting, and the mission that pops up is you have to kill Cassandra.
Holy crap.
Yeah, and so it's like this thing, and then it's like this super, like, you kill it. I'm just like, oh, this is like really sad. Like, I felt genuinely bad. And like, depending on which of the lieutenants you kill, which ones you keep alive, which ones like you, that impacts the end of the game. So, yeah, I mean, it does certain things. I gave it a 7.5, despite the fact that mechanically the game is so average. Like, everything else that the game tries to do and does accomplish is so good and really does elevate the thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so weird to try to tell a story in an open world game because it's like it's an open world. It's a sandbox is not conducive to storytelling. That's not something you're making up on your own. So when that's pulled off well, it's incredibly impressive. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like I kind of asked the guy Hayden Blackman when I was up at noon, and it was like, what kind of stuff do you have them doing in the open world in the sandbox? And he's like, well, it doesn't really make any sense if you're on this revenge mission to like go street racing. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like kind of,
But
so
I mean, that's the thing though, is if you're on a revenge mission, make it a linear game about a revenge mission.
I mean, that's what I think GTA 5 worked so incredibly well because it was like, which of these activities make sense for the individual characters, and you're still playing as like one character in this. So it's
and GTA 5 like also has always kind of been about anarchy. Well, the GTA series has always been about anarchy.
Yeah.
So like almost it doesn't even matter if it doesn't quite fit that this character is going to suddenly go racing or like whatever, because it's just that's the series.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
It's also the games where you get rocket launchers and jetpacks and you get on a roof and try to cause as much chaos before you die.
Yeah.
I would also rather like ultimately like look, it's a video game, and like Mass Effect 3 is a really good example of like, doing any side quest doesn't make sense because you're supposed to be rushing to save the world, but having side quests to do prevents it from being boring, and actually it's nice that like, yes, technically those don't super fit the narrative, but truthfully, like I would prefer kind of messing with the immersion a little bit and giving me something to do, as opposed to being like, oh, our game is like all immersive all the time, but you're going to be bored out of your mind if you're not in a story mission.
And there are like, there's collectibles, like there's Playboy magazines and album covers and sort of pinup posters, but they don't do anything. Like there's no collect 50 of these and you get a perk, or I don't even think there's an achievement tied to them. One cool thing with the Playboys though is that you can read the articles of the magazines you get, and so there's like a 5-page interview with Noam Chomsky in this game that you could just read, and like there's Gore Vidal interviews, and I'm like, that's probably the first time I've ever seen that in a AAA game.
That's great.
Yeah.
What just as a total aside, yesterday I was in a thrift shop and I opened a Playboy magazine, and it was actually the first Playboy magazine I've ever opened in my life. I don't I'm a woman, clearly. Wasn't around Playboy magazines a lot. And then the internet came along and, one of the magazines. I didn't realize this is a Playboy magazine from like 1981 or something. I mean, they weren't kidding that there were a lot of articles in there.
Oh, yeah?
Like, I honestly, I don't know what I was expecting, there's boobs, right? But yeah, there were a lot of articles.
It's like Hunter S. Thompson wrote for Playboy.
Like Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
I mean, there were like Shel Silverstein drawings in there. It was like kind of a weird intersection.
Yeah, it's like a lifestyle publication, I guess, that also had naked women in it, which is a really weird, and it's weird, like the modern era of Playboy is interesting too, because like they had a video game website, like they had coverage of like pop culture.
They've been like, hey, what if we they're now safe for work essentially. Like you can read their articles on their website, and they're like, hey, this actually does better traffic than if we have stuff that gets blocked by search filters. So
makes sense.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, and I said the soundtrack is probably the best use of licensed music to set a tone for a time and place since Vice City.
Damn.
Just
awesome.
Rolling Stones, CCR, Sam Cooke, Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix. Like it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
We had to turn all of that off for every video we recorded, though, because we did not want to get our YouTube channel flagged.
God, that's annoying. On that
Thanks,
note,
Sam Cooke.
Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is something I'm not currently downloading on this PS4 here, but which is a game. You want to just pull it up as like a cool background image or something?
Yeah, there's a cool trailer you can get to
Great.
play.
Awesome. Yeah. This is like right upon us. This is like coming out.
Yeah, I think
this is
it's
the one with
today.
all the bells and whistles and
Today's
everything.
Tuesday. Wait, and so you reviewed Rise of the Tomb Raider, right? Did I make that?
I did
The original.
I reviewed the original
Yeah.
and all the DLC
Yeah.
that came out.
Baba Yaga?
subsequently. Yes. I
She's a
reviewed
witch.
Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't actually got my hands on this. I haven't touched it.
I think Jonathan updated
yeah,
it.
Jonathan
Jonathan
reviewed it, and then
reviewed
you and I played. Well, you played most of it at Crystal,
Blood
and I
Ties?
played the rest of it at Gamescom.
Blood Ties?
So yeah,
Yeah.
there's Blood Ties, Lara's Nightmare, and then Blood Ties also available in PSVR.
Yeah, so
it's sort
Blood
of-
Ties is sort of the, for lack of a better term, Gone Home
Yeah.
hour-long story where you go around Croft Manor. There's no combat, and it's you sort of piecing together the story of your family and solving light puzzles.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
frame of it is that you weren't technically named in the will for Croft Manor.
Right.
So when your father dies, you have like this angry uncle who's like, well, I actually get the rights to the house unless you can find evidence that specifically says they wanted you to. And there's a safe. And you're like, well, how am I going to guess my dad's combination? And then you go around the house and learn a bunch of stuff about his history to try and figure out how to get the documents you need.
That sounds awesome.
That
And it's
sounds
actually really,
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
cool, really great writing in VO. There's like
Yep.
the light puzzle stuff where like this room is dark and you need to get the headlamp. And
So
in that room,
you mean literally light
Oh
puzzles?
god! Yeah, I mean there are. Yeah, there is like you need to find
Where's
a
the
lighter.
darn light
you need to
switch?
find a lighter to start a fireplace so that you could see heat
No spoilers.
activated ink.
Yeah, and
You
they-
might have made all that up.
They do really smart stuff like that, and it's funny because then they took and that's all the Croft Manor stuff that obviously wasn't in the core game because you don't
Yeah.
really explore the house. But then they took that environment they created and they were like, well, let's make a weird video gamey mode. So there's this other mode called Lara's Nightmare where it's all set at night in Croft Manor, but your uncle's voice is suddenly really scary and otherworldly, and it's like you're fighting demons and zombies in the house, and it's like almost like a Resident Evil style. Like you have to like take out these like big like weird floating head bosses, and like there's like a lot of like resource scarcity where you're like constantly like switching guns and finding ammo and things like that.
That's so like I love that they're doing that because it's making use of the environment they obviously spend a lot of time on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's one of the coolest things we've seen with kind of modern sandbox design is like if you've got a large space that you've created and there's kind of there's things that are obviously fun to do with it, but being like, okay, let's try different angles. I mean, Metal Gear Solid 5 was a good instance of this where they were like,
Right.
we've built a bunch of little maps and it's the configuration of how enemies are in there or what you're trying to do that changes the entire form of gameplay. But this is cool that to see it go in two drastically different angles. Like one is a totally just poke around narrative thing, and the other one's like kill the zombies,
Yeah.
video games.
Yeah.
And it's also if you don't want one, you can have the other. Like if you're a
Yeah.
guy who just wants to go shoot a bunch of stuff, you can.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who wants to like watch a more narrative focused
Yeah,
mode, you can do
and
that.
also the Gone Homey one is available. You can play it in PSVR, which is actually
Yeah.
really cool. Evidently, though, there are two different. What you
I
can say
want
Gone
that.
Homey?
I want to say Gone Homies. I want to see a game where Lara Croft's got to go around and find all her homies figurines.
I'm just really stoked that like PlayStation players can finally, PlayStation owners only can finally play this game.
Yeah,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
one of the best
Because,
games last
you
year.
know, we've known that it's been an amazing game for like how long? Like a year.
Yeah.
a year,
And yeah, I'm just really excited because I was really surprised at how much I loved Rise of Tomb Raider back
Same.
then, and yeah, so I'm stoked that people can finally actually play it on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad I waited honestly because like there's always that kind of if you play something on one system and then you want to go back and revisit it, there's always sort of that sense of like, oh, no matter how good the game is, there's like I got to do the tutorial again, or I have to do this
Right.
again.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's like the fact that I haven't touched it at all. It's like it's
I'm
entirely fresh
really
to me.
curious to see your thoughts because of having played it after Uncharted 4, just because all of us and Brian obviously played last fall. We played Tomb Raider and
Yeah.
then played Uncharted 4 in the summer or spring or whenever it came out. Whereas and so we couldn't help or I couldn't help at least playing Uncharted 4 and drawing comparisons to Tomb Raider. What it
Yep.
did better than Tomb Raider, what Tomb Raider did better than it. Because
Was-
they are, despite the fact that Tomb Raider is more of an open world game than Uncharted, they do a lot of the same things.
And it's not even, it's like Tomb Raider also sort of feels like a smart, it's like, it's so weird to compare it to Naughty Dog, but it feels like a smart combination of The Last of Us and Uncharted. Like you have weapon crafting, you have like this like sort of like upgrade system, and all that's not in Uncharted at all. And nor should it be. Like that's not, Uncharted is fine being its own thing. But I think having played Tomb Raider first, like that just personally is way more up my alley, like having like sort of like RPG tree type ways to upgrade things.
We talked about with Uncharted of like, I couldn't get over the lack of ownership of weapons.
Yeah.
Whereas in like Tomb Raider and The Last of Us, it's like you're crafting things that are like that mean something to you.
Yeah.
And you're investing in them. Whereas everything's sort of disposable in Uncharted. Which
Well,
again
and plus
doesn't.
you're creating your own playstyle that way
Yeah.
too, right? You're like, if I only use the bow, then I'm going to upgrade the bow and make the bow better. Whereas like if I only use a gun, then I'll upgrade guns. And in Uncharted, it's not that. It's just like pick up everything and everyone has the same baseline. And I think like that's a just different way to play a game.
Yeah.
It's totally fine to compare the two also, because like they're at the end of the day, I mean, to be reductive as hell, they're very similar products going after the same audience from different companies.
Oh my god. Well, when my Uncharted 4 review went live, you guys will remember that everyone was comparing the two because obviously I reviewed both of them.
Yeah.
So some of the assumptions there were quite extreme.
Well, I always hated that because people would be like, Call of Duty or Battlefield, which is better? And it's like they're different. They're different.
They are different, but yes, I totally understand why people are like, well, you enjoyed Tomb Raider more than Uncharted, and they're basically the same except one character is a woman. But no, that's being very reductive.
Yeah.
And they are different games in a similar genre. But I do just want to also just give a shout out again before we move on just to Lara Croft as a character in the series.
Yep.
I just since the reboot, I just think she's such a wonderful character because she's not overly sexualized. She's very confident. She's very much her own sort of person, and she's fallible. And I like the fact that you can you're let into her own psyche with her little little quips that she says to herself, the way she talks to herself and stuff like that. I really got into her mind, and I really liked that. And I would love to see more of that sort of style of writing, I guess, in these AAAs.
I'm struggling to think of a character that's been rebooted or reinvented as successfully.
Yeah, I agree.
To go from this kind of just a polygonal pinup to just that floats around through dinosaur space to being like, oh, here's this girl who has a hard time killing a deer, and then she's.
That's the moment to me that when I played the first reboot and she has to skin the deer and she's pretty much sobbing because she's like, I don't want to have to do this. I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah, and she's a human being, which I feel like there's so many just two-dimensional video game protagonists. It's nice to have someone who's well-rounded. I mean, I feel like with her, I think it's a testament to what a good job Crystal did that in the first game, I just don't care about the supporting cast at all. But I liked the game and I liked saving them because I cared about Lara and she cared about them.
Yeah,
and
that's
that was
right.
honestly enough for me.
Yeah. If there's one thing that in whatever the third game is, I would want changed, it's stronger supporting characters.
Yeah, I agree.
Because she is such an awesome core. Whereas Uncharted, sort of every supporting character is strong.
Yeah, across the board, Uncharted, the whole cast is really memorable. I do agree with you. They for the next game, definitely a stronger supporting cast. Just to match Lara, because Lara is such an amazing character.
Because they've also gameplay wise, it's solid. You did it. Just build it. You have the best foundation possible for gameplay.
Yeah, I thought I enjoyed the first one the most when it was isolating. When it wasn't about oh, there's your friend, you got to save you. There's that big guy who looks like Voss from Far Cry put on a lot of weight or whatever. And, it was just it's so much more fun when you're just alone in this universe. And
that's exactly it, and that goes back to the original Tomb Raider that we all played when we were kids, right? Where that was the first game for many of us that evoked that kind of sense of isolation and discovering the environment and all these magical things that just were so incredibly new, and you felt like you were stumbling across them by yourself.
Yeah. I totally forgot about this as one of the other new features in this until you mentioned that. The last new mode they put in is the survival mode that was DLC in Rise of Tomb Raider on Xbox.
Right.
Is now co-op, and it's actually really cool. It's almost like a weird. It's like a little bit of Dark Souls, a little bit of Don't Starve Together kind of stuff, where it is. You're out in the wilderness, you're hunting, you're gathering resources, and you have these meters you're maintaining, and you basically just stay alive for as long as you can, as many days as you can, and if you die, then you lose everything.
Yeah.
And so it's just a really, it is that feel that you're describing of being out in the wilderness and feeling like you are isolated, but you can do it with a friend, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, one of the best games of 2015, still one of the best games of 2016.
Cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of best games of 2015 or 16 or whatever year it is, I don't care. Ratchet and Clank is $20 on PSN.
Yeah.
And you should totally play it because
Yes.
that is a really, really good video game.
Yes,
Yep.
it is bright, it is colorful, it is funny, it is so much fun to play through. I feel like that's one of those games that it sold well, but
Yeah.
like Sunset Overdrive, I feel like it is such an incredible game.
You are a damn simpleton if you don't pick this up for $20.
So, I mean, what if they
Yeah,
just don't
you're
have the
a
money?
damn
What if
simpleton.
they don't have the money? What if they don't have the money?
I don't know. Then I don't know. Go sell a leg.
So one leg.
Sell
Yeah,
one
doesn't
leg.
have to be yours.
Get
on down there.
Watch the documentary
head
Don't
on.
Breathe. Rob a blind man's house in Detroit. But watch out.
It'll,
'Cause he's got secrets.
Yeah,
it'll work out great for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Everything
It's
worked
really
out great for
great.
those characters.
yeah. Head on down to the boardwalk and sell that leg.
I feel like Damn Simpleton sounds like it would be like the Halloween Twitter name of Dan
Dan
Simpleton.
Stapleton.
That's true.
I feel bad now. People are gonna say that in the comments.
No, they won't. Dan made his Beyond debut last week.
Did he?
Also, Dan is very much the opposite of a simpleton.
He's a very smart man. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Ratchet and Clank. Like I never really cared much for the original games. There are parts of the new one that I wish they'd been less faithful to the original because I feel like there's stuff like the surfer character is infuriating.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so like, go back to DreamWorks, you idiot. But yeah, like it's just a beautiful game. Like the
Yeah.
fact that they can be like, here's an art direction you might not really gel with, but like just the lighting and the colors,
Yeah.
the way it animates
Yeah.
is just insane.
And just like
So-
the fur textures and like the subtle movements. Yeah, I think it's right up there with Bloodborne as my favorite PS4 exclusive.
Yeah. I cannot
Be
wait
cool.
to play the Spider-Man game they're making. It's gonna be
Right? I keep forgetting that they're making a Spider-Man game.
So I'll make the Spider-Man
Yeah.
game. Knows,
I hope we hear more of this.
Doesn't have a Spider-Man game.
Spider-Man.
I feel like PSX would be a good place to learn more about that. Sorry,
Yeah.
took down our Tomb Raider backdrop.
So I want to talk about Westworld. Oh, even though it's a TV show. For those of you not paying attention, this is a TV show that is loosely based on one of Michael Crichton's first novels, which is basically about a funky cowboy theme park full of fake people. But the new TV show is like so totally about video games
Yeah.
without being about video games, and it's
Yeah.
Crazy.
brilliant. Yeah.
So, because Crichton's like movie, which was made in, I'm probably getting this
70s.
totally wrong, like early 70s,
Yeah.
I think, was very much like, okay, the theme park, something goes wrong, and it's basically like,
Yeah.
like Jurassic
It is
Park,
Jurassic
like
Park,
it's Jurassic
yeah.
Park, but with
Robots instead of
cowboy
dinosaurs.
robots pursuing you instead of
Yeah.
a T-Rex. But yeah, they've taken it in such a crazy, new, and interesting way in the series where, yeah, it is all about people playing the park like it's
Yeah.
a video game. And we're all of a sudden like looking through it because I saw Westworld, the original movie, back when I was, I don't know, like in 13 or something.
Yeah.
And now I'm however old I am, and I played so many video games, and I look through the lens of as a gamer, right? And I can just see that this is almost like 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years down the line. This is the end game for video games. Like, it is the complete immersive interactive
Totally.
experience.
Well, it's really
with
funny
no
to think about it because, like,
repercussions.
when Crichton wrote the book, their video games were like maybe Pong. Like
Right.
there wasn't anything there yet. So to be like, oh, this is a fictional universe where choice is your entire thing. He was going after like the kind of theme park,
Like
there,
Disneyland,
There
yeah.
were those like
Yeah.
those Wild West towns where you're like, oh, there's going to be a fake gunfight at noon, but like, oh, what if I could be a part of it? And now like we're in a post Red Dead Redemption world where it's like, do you want to be like a mean person or you want to be like a good
Yeah.
person?
Yeah, and there's, I mean, it is basically an open world game. I mean, there's NPCs, there are various quests, there
Yeah.
are main quests, there are side
Yeah,
quests.
the show
love it,
deals
yeah.
with the fact that if you have to remove a handful of these, they're called hosts, so it's the robots that you interact with. If you have to remove these characters, how does it impact the quest?
Right.
And so you're like literally think about a game like Red Dead or like Skyrim. You're like, well, if you took away the bartender who gives me
Yeah.
who gives me the quest to get this thing, how do I get this thing?
Yep.
And so it is like it's not like us being crazy and trying to put ourselves in the show. Like the show is absolutely influenced by video games.
And you're even seeing like there's this one character who's the writer. He's like the head writer, and you can see him trying to, and it just sort of, I can just imagine this conversation going on in a video game writer's room
Yep.
where the head writer is trying to pitch something, and everyone else is like, dude, like this is your story. every open world game should be about the player's story.
Yeah.
And you can see that push and pull in the series as the writer keeps trying to, put himself into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was someone on Twitter. It might have been Nick Robinson from Polygon. I'll just give him credit for this joke, even if it wasn't him. But who would like jokingly was like, "Oh, Westworld is a documentary about Bethesda Game Studios," and it's like, I totally get that. Like, it feels like what it would be like. Because I totally agree with you. Like, I can picture those conversations happening in the context of the game.
It's really, without spoiling it, there's a moment where he writes this monologue for a character, and the monologue gets interrupted, and he's like, they didn't even get to the best part.
Yeah.
And I was playing Mafia this weekend, and I'm driving, and the characters, like, I'm driving to my mission, and the two characters in the car, the guy's telling this story, and it's just like really good story. And then right when they're about to get to the punchline of the story, I go past the trigger mark and I trigger the actual cutscene. And so I'm like, now I never know how that story ends. And so I'm totally like, whoever wrote this story did a really good job of writing a story, and because of my actions, I don't get to know how it ends. And so like I robbed them of that.
Yeah. One of my favorite things in GTA is when you're just like driving along and the characters are having a conversation, then you like hit like a street sign and they're like, so anyway, we're gonna have to go down to the docks or we're gonna and then you're like, and then there's like that awkward pause and they're like, so we're gonna have to go down to the docks, and you're like, all right.
Yeah.
It's like a weird car ride.
Yeah, no, it's so good, and it also sort of brings up that again, trying not to spoil anything, but it brings up this idea of players trying to crack the meta. Do you know what I mean? Like trying to crack the end game and discover what it's all about, and there is one character in particular who you can sort of see being very brutal and acting and being that bad guy and doing all that stuff because he doesn't care about the quests and all that stuff. He just wants to get to the bottom of the meta, which is of course like something that so many gamers do once they've played a game enough times and they know the world inside out. Like GTA 5 is another really good example where everyone's just trying to like find those hidden Easter eggs and doing like basically anything they can.
And there's stuff where like you don't even know what it is. Like there was a bit with like the UFO in GTA 5
that's right,
that only appears at certain times in the in-game clock, and like there were like weird hieroglyphs and people were trying to figure. I don't think they figured it out yet.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this is that like someone else on Twitter said this. There's a lot of smart thoughts about this show on Twitter.
Congrats, Nick Robinson.
So, and another Nick Robinson.
Nick Robinson of Twitter.com.
No, but there's someone else was saying that like everyone we follow is a console player, but then Ed Harris's character is like a PC guy data mining.
Yeah,
and I think that's
right.
like such an interesting way to look at it.
Well, and it's also like not only is it digging into a game like GTA 5 where you're like, oh, did Rockstar put something in this? But it's also like speedruns where you're like, oh, this guy beat Ocarina of Time in 15 minutes because he backflipped a bunch and all of a sudden went to the last dungeon. I'm like, well, that wasn't intended. Like, no one intended to put that there, but you just broke the game enough.
And as gamers also, it also make like, I've been watching it and thinking like, how would I go into this world? Like, what would I do? Would I, if I had one shot, what would I do? Would I try and mess around or would I play by their rules?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is that I would play by their rules.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like, I was thinking that too. Like, I would totally go there and just like quietly sit at the bar and have conversations with people.
Because it's like half like escapist video game thing where you're like, yeah, you can go in there, you can bang out, you can kill people, you can ride a horse or whatever. But then it's also like,
the big three.
You can also just go hiking and have a nice meal, and it's like things you can do at an actual resort, and then things you can do in video games.
It's still a lot of fun. Like,
there's that scene where there's like a nice family that like finds a girl painting, and they're like, "That's a nice painting," and she's like, "Thanks, it's getting dark. You should go home." They're like, "Okay, yeah." Like I'm like, "Oh yeah, that would be me." Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to watch in the context of. I mean, it's a great show in any way, but like I think in the context of gaming and like in playing games like this, I think there's an extra layer to it that's super interesting. And like Jonathan Nolan said in an interview that like Red Dead and BioShock Infinite and other games did sort of inspire a little bit of what's there. So I love this show. I totally can't recommend it enough.
It's really cool to see like high quality conventional media that's taking cues from video games without being stupid.
And just quickly, Jonathan Nolan and his wife Lisa Joy are the masterminds behind it, and they were actually talking about how they play GTA differently. So he blasts through the missions and is just like all about getting through the story, and she is someone who stops at every streetlight. And you know what I mean? So what's really interesting is that you've got those two people in charge, and you're seeing those sort of dynamics working in the show.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Oh, I also meant to say I did a Westworld VR experience.
Oh,
at
yeah.
New York Comic Con, which was incredibly cool and weird. Also, like, if it seems like we're going too deep on this is 2 episodes in. So if you
Oh yeah. So yeah, it's on. Wait, I
we don't
guess
know what
it's
the
on
hell
HBO.
we don't know what
so,
the hell this show is like yet.
Also, the show might get awful by the end.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
And then the kangaroo
Turn
showed
left
up.
real fast.
Man, in episode 3, when all the animals started talking, it was really weird. That Superman crossover.
I
Was
don't know why
kinda-
they got Gilbert Gottfried to do the voice, but no, like it was really strange. They basically had this like pop-up shop at Comic-Con where you walk up and it's in this like kind of off the beaten path. Like there's it was like this side street up the way from the convention center. It had a big sign out front that had the Westworld logo. You open the door and you're greeted by like actual hosts. Like there's very handsome man in like an all white suit, just entirely white, and he's hello there. Do you have an appointment with us? And we're like, yeah, we got at 11:45, I think. We're from IGN. And
I'm
he's
just
like,
picturing Brian like, bruh.
yeah, and they're like, excellent. Now, have you put any thought into what kind of a host you'd like, a male or female? And Brian's like, female. And I'm like, well, I guess for the sake of journalism, I don't know where this is going to go. I'll take a male host. And it winds up being this whole thing where they like lead you in the back, and there's this like beautiful woman sitting behind this like clear plexiglass desk.
Wait,
and
at
she's
what are you? Do you have a headset on at this
no,
point?
this is a physical
Oh my
space.
God.
Like this is the office. This is us being like led to the area where and they're like, all right, well, we're gonna take you in the back, and there's a VR demo that we're gonna hook you up to, and we're gonna see how it goes. And welcome to Westworld, home of the Westworld. Like, just
Is
like
this ASMR? Welcome to Westworld,
no,
home of the Westworld.
it was all very quiet. Like it was totally like
Oh, that's so unnerving.
it felt like a really high-end department store, which
Right.
was fitting because then you put on the VR headset and they're like, welcome, we're going to outfit you in all of the necessary Westworld attire. This is all custom, bespoke, and totally fit. And this environment showed up in the second episode where they're basically like, here, get your hat, get your gun, here's your new stuff. But they had you like using a VR controller to like pick up the gun and like hold it and look at it in your hand and then put your hat on, and it shows up kind of above your head.
That's
and then
really
it
cool.
warps you to this like
Oh,
Wild
that's
West
really
area, and you're
cool.
looking around, and there's like vultures flying overhead, and people having like a bar fight in the distance, and your host is there, and he's like, all right, partner, let's get you set up, and you're gonna shoot some cans and bottles or some bullets right behind you. Let's see if you're a natural at this. And you're like, I'm like, of course I'm a natural at using VR at this point, so I'm just like trying to shoot. My gun's like click, 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 click. And I'm like, give me the damn bullets already. And then I just like wave that, and it's clearly like kind of
You
dumbed
brat.
down for
Yeah.
for like for people who haven't done VR before. But
Right.
if you hadn't done VR before and you'd seen one episode of Westworld, this would have been like, holy crap. But like,
Yeah.
it definitely got me more interested. And then it does this thing where it like, you know, you go through the experience, and then they're like, oh, the robots are getting kind of goofy in here. Let's maybe take you out of it. And then you're suddenly not in a CG environment, but in like just an FMV like 360 video that's basically shot on the Westworld set, and it's got some like graphics on top of it, but it's very much like kind of a jarring shift in what you're seeing in terms of like just the fidelity of the imagery. But and then they pull you out of it, and they're like, did you enjoy your trip to Westworld? And I'm like, yes, it was fine, thank you. And they're like, what? Right this way.
I'm
And I was
sure
like,
that's what I mean. Like if
Yeah.
Westworld, the way it is in the show, were a real thing, I'm sure it'd be really weird to spend like a week in this crazy Wild West where you do whatever you want, and then get in the train and go to like your office job at
Yeah.
a bank.
Yeah.
But it was really strange because this is a promotional pop-up event. You know, I feel like 5 years ago maybe they'd have like a presentation you watched or something,
Yeah,
or like
that's
an
right.
interview with one of the stars. But in this case, they're like, here's this is like the perfect intersection of interactive media and traditional media and technology and convention culture all kind of stacked on top of itself.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's
weird.
perfect timing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Did the beginning of that story remind me? Did I ever tell? Did you guys know what Jejun was?
Yeah, the Jejun Institute.
Yeah.
Those
So
Pervits.
Yeah, this pervits.
real pervits.
They're not. Pervits.
They're like mystery pervits. Okay.
Yeah, I mean they're mystery pervits. So it was this thing. It was a couple years ago. I was doing it with my ex, and
See, I told you,
we were
pervits.
watching. God. No, we were like we just finished rewatching Lost at the time. We were telling someone's like, "Oh, have you done Jejun?" And I'm like, "We don't know what that is." Like, okay, don't Google it. Go to this building. So there's this giant building downtown right by the Transamerica building, and they're like, go to the 35th floor, take a right, and then there's gonna be a receptionist, and say that you're there for the Jejun Institute. And we're like, okay.
You actually did that? I would totally have
I mean, it was
Googled
a friend
it
of
5
ours.
minutes later.
It's a friend of ours. And so we get up, 35th floor of this building. We go to the receptionist. And we're like, we're here for the Jejun Institute. And she's like, oh, orientation? And we're like, sure. She's like, all right, right this way. And so we enter a room, and it has all this like weird 70s kind of psychedelic, like faux sci-fi, almost like Timothy Leary stuff. Like, and we're just sitting there, and a doctor comes in a white lab coat and gives us this very brief sort of test. And it almost was like if you're trying to get like a pot card. It's like, do you guys have nightmares? I'm like, well, sure, we have nightmares. Like, do you get worried about stuff? I'm like, well, yeah, I get worried about stuff. He fills out some stuff. He's like, all right, I'll be back in a couple minutes. And he leaves, and we're just like, all right. And then the TV comes on, and it's like that scene from Lost, but or like, I guess, the Bob Dylan music video. And there's a woman on there with cue cards, and she says, don't believe their lies. And she pulls the next one. She says, don't go through orientation. And she pulls out another one. She says, there's a map in the drawer to your right. And so we look to our right, and we open a drawer, and there's a map. And on it says, don't take the elevator, take the stairs. And so we like sneak out of this building, go down the stairs, and then the rest of the thing is this scavenger hunt throughout San Francisco, where it's like you're going through Chinatown. We had to go into this very specific store in Chinatown and buy this one very specific thing for like $2. That like the people who ran the store like knew that this was a thing, and it all like culminates in you getting back to, you go all through Chinatown and North Beach and solving these mysteries and scavenger hunt clue stuff, and it culminates in you getting back to the Jejun Institute. But by the time we got back, the doors were closed. Like it's a 9 to 5 thing, and literally it was 2 days before the last thing ever, so we have no idea what the end game is.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's like, okay,
super sucked.
because that sounds like the whole plot to the game with
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
like that sounds like the entire plot except without the like cathartic ending.
And
Also,
like my brother
right-
didn't try to throw me out a window or whatever.
Yeah.
I also
gonna say
love that was
also,
also last week's episode of You're the Worst, was them trying to find a speakeasy by finding all these like arcane clues.
Another really good movie to check out if you're interested in this sort of thing is Existenz.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Oh,
basically
yeah.
like
movie.
David
Yeah.
Cronenberg's version of The Matrix. It came
Yeah.
out like I think a month after The Matrix, and it's
Jude Law,
so
right?
much better in hindsight. but
Agree.
Similar things.
They make-
So anyway,
the thing I remember for that is a chicken bone gun. They make a weird gun out of chicken bones, and they have the weird sex things that go.
it's
with
definitely
it.
there's a lot of
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, hey, if the PlayStation Move requires you to stick stuff inside yourself, that's kind of what you'd be dealing with.
Yeah, it's like VR meets body horror basically.
Yeah.
That's such a weird movie. I watched that movie. I took a class in art school called History of the Cyborg. Hold for laughs. One day I showed up really late, and my friend and I had been, I don't know what we did bad stuff the night before, and we showed up like a little bit late and like very hungover. We walk in.
Did you do the Jejun?
No. We did.
That word's starting to become really funny.
Sailor Jerry shots, I think. The Jejeri Institute. But yeah, like we showed up, and it's like 20 minutes into Existenz, which is again incredibly strange movie, and we sit down and we're just like mouthing like what the at each other across the room, and we're like, we get like to like a halfway through the class, and it's like coffee break, and we go outside, and we're like, what are we watching? What is this movie? So anyway, now it is time for my favorite part of the show.
The end.
The releasing of the dubs. No, it's time for Rapid Fire. This is a thing we do every week, usually with Brian Altano, rest in peace, knock wood. We go in the Facebook group or
He's not
on
dead.
our, no, he's fine, or our YouTube channel, which is facebook.com/group/podcastbeyond or youtube.com/IGNbeyond.
You guys did a Let's Play of the Lego Dimensions.
We did, yeah.
Mission Impossible
With the
pack?
developers, and I'm really bad at jumping as a Batman, I think.
Batman's not supposed to jump. He's
Yeah.
supposed to...
He's also not supposed to be Mission Impossible. That didn't stop those crazy people at the Traveler's Tales.
Games are so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, rapid fire. Questions time. Everybody, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Austin Park says, what game changed the way you look at games? Mine is KOTOR. Changed storytelling in games for me forever.
God, I feel like I've talked about this so much, but Mario 64. Mario 64, and I think to a little bit lesser extent GTA 3. But Mario 64 for me especially. I think that just made me rethink how big scope could be and made me understand that games can be so much bigger. I mean, there were Super Nintendo games that did that a little bit as well. I think, like, I've talked a lot about Earthbound on SNES and made me realize games could be funny and made me realize games could be contemporary. Like, it didn't, like, until I played that game, I was like, oh, no one would ever make a video game set in, like, modern day. Why would they do that? Like, why would they be in a small town like I live in? But
Yeah,
everything I played before that was,
I remember
like,
at that point,
Link
like
to the Past.
with Earthbound, it's like, what if Final Fantasy was set in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Instead of fighting monsters, you fought rabid dogs.
Yeah, and ate
crows
pizza.
with cigarettes.
Yeah, and like one of the status effects in that game is homesickness, and you have to call your mom. Like that game totally made me rethink like what video games could be and the kind of stories they could tell.
Yeah, I keep on like that Link to the Past, and then further like down the road, Grim Fandango.
Yeah.
I think that was just a super adult story.
Okay.
Yeah, for me it would be Silent Hill, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Just because like that was the first game that I played that really got under my skin in a deeply psychological way.
Yeah.
And every game I played prior to that had been a lot more American, a lot lighter, a lot sort of the stories that I was used to seeing in movies and television, and here was something that was completely different and messed up, and it was like ice water, in my veins while I was playing that game. And I guess for me, I've never I realized that games can be actually terrifying, and that's why I've been a huge fan of horror games since.
Yeah, nurses don't have to be nice. They can be very scary.
They can be really scary.
Sometimes
Naughty nurses.
Sometimes you can wear a pyramid on your head.
Yeah.
Take that off.
Also the first game to ever make me cry, which is weird.
Silent Hill 1 or 2?
Silent Hill 1. Like when Lisa dies.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she doesn't die, but when she realizes who she is.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I'm sorry.
I think we're fine.
But, that moment for me, like, I remember that was the first time I actually cried in a video game.
Yeah, horror games are just exceptionally strange because, like I've always said, video games are the only medium that pushes back against you. Like,
Right.
if a movie gets too scary, you close your eyes, but it keeps playing. And like a book, if you stop reading it, it stops being
Functioning.
a book.
Yeah.
But
That's
it
right,
also
that's
it
right.
doesn't change the end of it from being the end of it. It's still there. Everything is kind of automatic in a sense, but like video games, like you have to make your character move forward.
Yeah.
And like it was really funny. I was watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre yesterday.
Love that movie.
Yeah, I've actually never seen it before. It was
Oh,
really,
the original,
very
though?
original. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I know that I'd always been kind of scared of it, but then I was watching. I was like, this is hokey as hell. And then
Yeah.
I was watching it with Jen, and she's like, what is she? I mean, she's doing like the classic, like, why would you go up there? Why would you go in there? What's wrong with you? And I'm like, because it's a slasher movie. It's like the first slasher movie. Like,
Right.
there's no common sense here. But also, like, you do things that don't make any sense when you're under pressure. Like when I mean, she'll do like I was watching her play Last of Us recently, and she something would jump out at her, and she'd be like, bah, and she'd like pull up the menu, and I'm like, huh, maybe that's kind of the equivalent of that. Like horror games. They're like-
Going upstairs when you
like,
shouldn't,
"What?"
it's pulling up the menu.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, for me, Metal Gear Solid.
Yes.
That was the first time that I was like, oh, how did they get the music from The Rock in here? Like and also that just the level of like of kind of cinematic storytelling, for better and for worse, because sometimes you just want to actually play the game, but for it to be like, oh, this feels like a movie that you can interact with. And then it also had that layer of incredible like weirdness.
Yeah, and like meta
Yeah.
sort of ness, where it was like, because I'm the same as you. Like for me, it was the first game that I was playing that was sort of aware that it was a game, and that was really weird and cool.
Yeah, like having a boss that reads your memory card files,
Yeah.
or just the fact that they're like, hey, there's more than one way to do things, and it doesn't tell you that anywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
oh yeah,
right.
you got to go get the IR goggles so you can see the tripwires, or
Smoke.
smoke some cigarettes
Yeah.
that you smuggled in your butthole or your stomach.
Yeah, because
Did
you
he-
got really wet
Did he
getting
eat
in
the
there.
cigarettes? What did he do with that?
Yeah, no, I think it was butthole.
Butthole?
I think it was
yeah.
Yeah, butthole
definitely
cigarettes.
That's
butthole.
really awful.
My favorite 90s band.
Solid Snake, awful man. Yeah, but yeah, Metal Gear's cool. Jeff Vandenbosch says, "Are you guys going to be at PSX?" That's a great question.
Marty and I definitely will. And then TBD on who the rest of the team is, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, we're fine. I know people in the Facebook group said they want to plan a meetup,
Oh, cool.
which is good because I don't know anything about Anaheim other than the Mighty Ducks.
Well, the best place to eat is the California Pizza Kitchen.
I
Wow.
thought you said that there were nice restaurants by the convention center.
Yeah, so not right by the Manchester. No, I mean, the only time I've really been there was for BlizzCon 2013.
I'll have the Mighty Duck
but-
confit.
Yes.
Right.
But no, yeah. We'll find a place.
Okay.
CPK.
Matthew Fieldhouse says, "Who do you think is going to win the Great British Bake Off? What is your reaction to the news that it is moving channels and losing most of its presenters and judges?"
Can a single person on this in this table like in this room answer that?
Yes. So the
Okay,
thing is,
all right.
last week,
yeah.
Right.
Andrew, last week's episode was weird. It was just Andrew and I, and then we brought in rotating guests, rotating thirds. And I think to kill time in between two people, he started talking about the Great British Bake Off. I got mad at him and I said no one cares. It turns out a lot of people care. A lot of people really like the Great British Bake Off.
Yeah.
I don't know why anyone lets me on the show. I think Candace.
You have squatters'
or,
rights. You've been here longer than the rest of us.
Candace or Selassie or Benjamina would be my pick to win. And I think it's very sad that everyone's leaving next season. That the show's just going to be weird old Paul Hollywood. And probably
Yeah,
not
I'm pretty
gonna be
sure
interesting.
people felt that way about this show too. Anyway, Yeah, that show's really strange. I don't really watch those shows, but I went over to a friend's house and they were all like just watching it, really into it, and it was kind of surprising how like pleasant everyone is.
It is a lovely show. Like Mary Berry
she's incredible.
She's like a force of nature.
Yeah. They're like, this cake is absolutely terrible, but you tried.
Yeah.
You should feel bad about yourself, but not that bad, I guess. Sebastian Thrower says, has a game ever hit too close to home for you, for better and or for worse?
Ooh.
I played Braid right after a breakup.
Yikes.
And it was a breakup where, like, it was one of those, I was like, oh, it was definitely her fault. And I came to the realization, I was like, no, it was totally my fault. And that's sort of what Braid is about. And so, like, playing that just at the right time and right place in my life, I was like, oh, yikes. Yep. Jonathan Blow and I know what's going on.
Yeah, that'll be rough.
Yeah.
Man, I don't think I've really had a game hit too close to home for me, story-wise, honestly.
Yeah.
No, neither.
Yeah. I mean, that probably, like, movies and TV shows have done that to me, but I don't know that I've necessarily had a game.
Playing Metal Gear Solid 2 in the aftermath of 9/11, when like people were like,
Wow.
why is there like is the government like spying on us, or is there cyanide in the mail? Like, what's happening? Like, what's going on right now? And then it's all like, oh, memetics. You have to fight the president on a roof.
I mean, I reviewed that Dragon Cancer, which was hard to play, but I wouldn't say that it was because I haven't had a child who's had cancer, so I can't say, oh yeah, it hit close to home. But it was definitely it was very emotional. Playing that game.
Even a child without cancer, like Justin can't play that game because he's like, I have a daughter, like I could never.
It's definitely a difficult game to play. Yeah.
And there were, times over the weekend when we were playing Mafia 3 is much different, but there was like, I killed a Klansman, and then the cops surrounded me, shot me dead, and then the words, right before I died, it came up, the cops have witnessed a crime, and just shot me dead. And it was obviously like the gameplay in Mafia is very disparate from the storytelling, but it was just that image. Like, I think I was on your couch when we were playing it. We're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well,
damn.
Yeah.
That's not obviously not too close to home for our experience, but like in terms of like real life tragedy, for sure. Yeah.
Playing a game that hits too close to home for better, I would say Sybil, the Nina Freeman's game.
100%. Yeah.
That's a game about basically falling in love with someone over the internet.
Yep.
Totally used to have like LiveJournal friend crushes and stuff, and it brought me back to like kind of a weird point in time when it was cool. Kind of pre-social media, but still having
and even like I was playing that game like right at the tail end of a long distance relationship, and it was sort of weirdly reminiscent of that too. Like that game's brilliant. I love that game.
It's like good music, I suppose, right?
Yeah
The
totally.
thing that always takes you right back there.
Yep.
Jacob Meyer says, have any of you ever seen a psychic / palm reader / tarot card person, Deets?
Deets.
Yeah, that's like the backwards hat on that sentence.
I've told Marty like 10 different times that I want to just like be like, hey Max, we're taking you somewhere special for your birthday, and take you to a palm reader someday.
All right. We were walking by a palm reader the other day. We should take Max here.
Why specifically Max?
It's really weird. Well, because we had a stretch where every time it was someone's birthday, we'd take them to an appropriately themed restaurant.
Yeah.
Right.
We took Brian to Buca di Beppo's, which is the most garish Italian fake restaurant you could ever imagine.
Yep.
And we were like, well, we want to expand from food. Like, we want to take Alana to the Outback Steakhouse.
Yep.
And I feel like yours wouldn't
Really?
be food.
I feel like that's what does that say about me?
What?
That you want to know what's going to happen in your future.
I don't want to know what's going to happen in my future.
You're a real mystical dude.
No, I'm not.
I also
a real mystical dude. No one's ever said that.
No. The thing is, you are like Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China, and so we need to add some mysticism to your life.
Right.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, I get that.
I like that you just talk Max off the ledge. He's like,
I'll take it.
What is this? Some kind of magic potion?
But also, so I've never been to one, but an idea I want to do before E3, don't steal it, internet, is go to a psychic right before and have her try to predict the press conferences.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, God, that poor person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said her. I don't know why I immediately was like, psychics are women.
Did you notice I went a bit gender neutral?
No, which is totally fine because I said her, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of like the old trope of like dinner or something. Like,
to throw that trope to the wind, there was a guy I went to high school with who used to do a lot of tarot reading. He was like kind of a theater nerd, kind of a regular nerd, kind of just a strange dude. But he would do this. We had occasionally have like a Renaissance fair at school. It was like put on by theater and history and whatever. They don't get together. And, but he would do like a fortune telling booth when he would have his tarot cards out. But he would always be like, I'm sorry, I love this. He'd always be really biased. and none of us knew tarot, so we can't really call him on it. But I'd go up and I'd be like, hey, what's up, man? He's like, oh, how's it going? And I was like, I don't know, I was kind of mean to him, but like we sort of I wasn't mean to him, but I was like, I would tease him here and there. I would like friend bullying, that kind of thing. And he would be like, huh. Let's see. It's the Knight of Crosses and then the Cup of Clubs or whatever. And they're like, it's like, yeah, this means that you think you're really funny, but you know what? Maybe you're not. And I was like, that's not fortune telling. But then he'd do it to girls that he liked, and he'd be like, this is my favorite. Be like, it says you're gonna meet your true love soon. He's got
Maybe very soon. Maybe you just met him.
He's got blue eyes. His name begins with K, and he loves the Indigo Girls. And you're like, they'd be like, that's incredibly specific. It talks about the Indigo Girls in the tarot. So yeah, really nice kid. But that was like, it was kind of weird to be like, so what's your
What a racket to run.
What was your
unbelievable. It's so good.
What was your role in high school? Were you like a jock or a nerd or like a fortune teller?
My favorite class.
Yeah. Finally,
it's really good.
AJ Massix is sweet or spicy?
Spicy.
That's
Spicy.
such. I mean, gun to my head, spicy but sweet is so wonderful. Like I feel like there are those moments where I'm like, I have a
Sounds
craving
like
for
a
something
Fiona
savory.
Apple album.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, yeah, probably spicy.
Yeah. I mean,
Sweets are great,
I'm
though.
biased there. So.
Like Greg Miller's pumpkin bread.
Yeah.
Very great.
So what I like is that sweets are generally they're gonna make you fat, but spicy is sort of a thing you can put on something that won't make you fat to make it more fun.
It's true.
You can have like
it's
a
true.
really boring salad and put hot sauce on it, and you're like, oh, this salad hurts, but at least it's better than being boring.
At least I feel like I'm living.
No, I have a friend who's like just like super like manorexic, and he will unscrew the top of like the red pepper thing, and he'll have like one slice of pizza, but he'll just like cover it in red pepper and then hold it up and shake off the excess like he's making a glitter snowflake in kindergarten. And then he'll eat the whole thing. I'm absolutely talking about Scott. And then he'll just like, he'll eat that whole thing, and you're like, what comes out of you? That's terrifying.
Is it worth it?
Yeah. Anyway, that about wraps us up.
Wraps us up like mummies?
It's so hot in here. Yeah, wraps us up like mummy. A seasonal treat. A cornucopia of old mummies.
Before we wrap us up, we should say that in 3 days from the day where this will go live, there's an IGN house party in San Francisco.
Saturday the 15th.
Saturday the 15th. You can still get tickets. It's go.ign.com/IGN house party, or it's the pinned tweet on IGN. Yeah. We'd love to see you.
We're all going to be there. Brian's going to be there.
Even I'm going to be
Even
there.
Lucy.
Even I'm going to be
Yeah.
there.
Awesome.
Think of how much money you'd be saving over a trip to Australia.
Yeah,
It's true.
Probably a lot.
Yeah.
Also, if you fly to Australia, you might not even see Lucy.
Yeah.
That's probably likely, actually. that
It's
you
one of the largest islands.
Yeah. But everyone,
on
pretty much
Earth.
everyone from IGN will be there. Brian will be there. Alana will be there. Yeah.
And
Jared
if
will be
you
there.
want a job in the industry, our esteemed editor-in-chief, Steve Butts, and our founder, Per Schneider, will be doing a Q&A about how to get a job here. And anyone who gives them a resume, they will personally get back to you and tell you what they thought, which is really cool.
that's
And I
amazing.
would have killed for that.
Yeah,
when I
that's
was
incredible.
looking into this.
Those poor idiots. Why would they agree to do that?
Yeah.
It sounds like that sounds like
It'd
a
be very
nightmare.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a sneak resume in there and see what happens.
A cool trick to getting a good job is to print your resume on $100 bills.
Yeah. Someone sent us a resume on a cake once.
And we ate the cake, and everyone was like, hey, anyone take a picture of that and get the guy's name? And then we're like, nope. Not great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, you can follow us all on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. Andrew is Garfep. Marty is McBiggity. Lucy, what's yours?
I'm Luce O'Brien, Luce O'Brien.
Lucifer for Halloween
That's
name.
Lucifer for Halloween. I just thought it
I
was
don't like
mildly
those
creative.
Halloween things.
Well, it's the first
Well,
time
because
I
I
did
get
it.
tricked. Like I see that name and I'm like, I don't know who Spooky McGillicuddy is.
Well,
And I
it's
was like, oh,
annoying
it's my
when it's
friend.
like Spooky McGillicuddy
Lukey
retweeted this,
McGillicuddy.
and then you have to click through to see who it was. Yeah.
Lucy,
Yeah.
you could totally dress up like Lucifer from Wicked and Divine. You
Oh,
heard that?
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've actually been told that before.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you have a
quite
Halloween
few
plan?
times.
Do you know what you're going to be for Halloween?
No, I bought a pair of Holtzman glasses for 90 American dollars because I'm insane.
Well, I guess you're going as Holtzman then.
So yeah, I guess I'm going as Holtzman.
What? I need a Halloween. Please send me Halloween costume.
Max already
ideas.
has his. Yours
Oh yeah,
perfect.
yours is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not done.
Even the family's getting involved.
I need to build a robot arm.
Yeah. No, I'm doing Venom Snake, and I've got pretty much everything except the robot arm, and I need to find my Walkman.
And Peppers is.
Yeah, I got Peppers' D-Dog. I got a little tactical vest, and he's like
Love
a little diamond
cute.
dog. It's great.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm going to be yet, and we're running out of time.
Yeah. All right. Running out of time for the show too. So be sure to don't calm down.
I don't know, Marty's just looking at me.
God,
It's just my
stop it,
eyes.
both of
It's
you.
just my eyes.
You're like pets sometimes. You just get all weird and start messing
Oh,
with each other.
Peppers.
Get weird mess with each other.
Yeah. I don't know. Like
that
sometimes my
happens.
animals fight. And I'm like, are you mad at each other? Or are you just playing? I don't know what you're doing. They started like getting just like up at each other's business. I'm like, you just stupid idiots, little animals. All right. Yeah. Beyond. We'll be back whenever we do this again. In
Either
the
it'll
future.
be next week
Yeah, or this weekend, whatever.
or this weekend also.
It's so hot in here. I'm gonna try to figure out how to
Yeah, it's
download.
very hot.
All right. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you, Lucy.
Bye.
Bye. Beyond.